I swear that is absolutely one of the cutest animals I have ever seen. I swear to God, I was so happy I saw that. You know. Anyway, whatever. This is the false nine.
The buccaneer will never die.
Dude, he's so cute. I'm sorry. But anyway, I'm Scott. That's JD. This is the false nine, and we're going to be talking Leagues Cup because here we are. Amazingly enough, we're at the semifinals. There's a bunch of teams in there, which frankly I don't think people expected to have even gotten to the round of 8. Let alone basically where they are now. So we're going to be breaking down some of that. We're going to be talking a little bit about the new tentative new head coach of the U.S. men's national team and the curious way he's going to be, we'll call it e-coaching. Anyway, as always, you can find us on social media, Streampunk Entertainment, Streampunk ENT. You can find me, I'm Scott Churchson. You can find him, he's JD Walker. And in the meantime, sir, how the heck are you?
Doing pretty well. That was a hell of a game last night with Philadelphia Union and Mazatlan going down to penalty kicks. And Blake is just back. The Union are back.
You look at this team and given the ups and downs that they've had all season, and this is the funny thing about Leagues Cup is that every match can be basically its own playoff, and anything can frankly happen in a case like this. And seeing that team continue to win, and obviously win in the way that they did with, the shootout, which we're going to talk about that because 3 out of the 4 games yesterday were all actually shootouts, which adds to the fuel that I think MLS has to do that. But yeah, you've got a team there that's got a punch your shot at getting into the finals.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this for the Union, they are now 2 wins away from a trophy and 1 win away from a CONCACAF Champions Cup berth, despite being stuck in the abyss for the better part of 3 months.
Go ahead.
At this point, I mean, there's been a lot of hate for this tournament, and while I admit I'm relatively new to MLS, I kind of understand it, but the history of U.S. Open Cup and all that, but just I'm sorry, this is better. This is more engaging to me, because of the mix of Liga and MX.
That's the funny thing about it. You and I were talking about this just a few minutes ago before the show started. We got the opportunity to see fans coming in from Mexico, flying in from Mexico, to the respective areas. In this case, from me covering NYCFC and you covering the Union, and seeing just the outright passion and exuberance that came from that. The tailgating going on. I mean, the concessions that were set up outside the game. These guys were having straight up. I don't know about you, but for the game that I saw on Tuesday with NYCFC and Tigres, they were having straight up barbecues out there.
Oh yeah, there was multiple ones. Not so much last night because Mazatlan is the newest team in Liga MX. Doesn't really have the following of the massive giants. The Club America. They didn't. The guy I bought this from didn't have a Cruz Azul jersey, which was the one I really wanted because that Cruz Azul match in group stage was unlike anything I've ever seen before. It was
let's take a look at
just the only thing close to it was the Leagues Cup semis last year against Miami and the Messi circus, as I call that. And I heard stories about Club America and CONCACAF Champions Cup last year and how that was. I didn't realize about how much chaos that was until after I bought this jersey, but this is awesome. It's a third kit. I like this better. The alternate kit I like way better than their highlighter yellow.
Well, in this case here, this is where this gets interesting because, just to move on to the next round, I mean, it's a 2 games, it's a 2-game schedule. You can literally get in with just 2 points. NYCFC in their particular case got 2 points and they moved on to the round of 8. So the beauty of it is that, frankly, any team can get hot at the right time. And in this case, for a Philadelphia Union team that has been very up and or down this season, to be where they are to the round of 4 is honestly really, really strong for them.
Absolutely. And it gets, although it is polarizing among the fan base, and I I understand it, but I don't understand it. But for me, it's union soccer. They've been playing great. They're playing a few teams that they normally don't play. Although the other issue with this is playing teams that they play all the time. I'd like to see a little bit more mix up in the regionalization of the groups. I understand it's for travel, but like, how the heck many times are LAFC and Seattle going to? They could play as much as 7 times this year if they meet in the first round of the playoffs, plus the Leagues Cup quarterfinals, plus the U.S. Open Cup semi a few days after the Leagues Cup final.
You know, it does take away some of the magic. And if you look at it right there, they got the match at 10 p.m., by the way, Eastern on the 21st in 3 days from now. LAFC and Colorado play each other twice a year anyway. So it does lose a little bit of that spark that you had, for example, last night, you know, where you face a team that you never get to play. There might be talk going forward. There has been a little bit of talk that with some of the future tournaments, they might bring in like the 2 teams, the MLS Next Pro teams into the tournament as well to further expand it. Because in the 2021 season,
I don't see a point of that.
I could see it being interesting. I think it could be a great playoff feel. I mean, listen, the reality is nobody's going to expect like Red Bull 2 or any of these teams to be able to, compete against a team like FC Cincinnati. But it would be great training for them.
They can do that in the U.S. Open Cup. That's what it's for. Now
that could actually happen too.
U.S. Open Cup is like the NIT. It's it had its history. And I say that, and ironically, I say that as a writer that covered the team that won the NIT this year. And so, yes, a trophy is nice. It's cool. Any season with a trophy is a successful season, even if it's in a mid-season money grab tournament. You know who else it's a great money grab for? The players.
Yeah.
And especially for players on the union, the homegrowns, some of the salaries that the ones on the low end of the scale are making are, they're what normal people make in their jobs.
Do you think the Sullivan family's doing okay?
So once the Sullivans are fine. Quinn's making $200K. I think he can afford that. UPenn too. He's also taking classes at UPenn too. So good for him. But he can afford it. And Kevin, I've heard the numbers I've heard thrown around for Kevin. Those numbers haven't been released yet, but yikes!
They're probably fairly high. Yeah,
good for them. I think they'll be fine.
And and there's a couple other kids in the pipeline too that I think are at the USL level or college level.
There's a lot.
There's a couple other brothers in there somewhere.
Yeah, it's a family affair for rap, but
I got to figure.
But
go ahead.
Getting back to don't want to get too far off track here, but with Leagues Cup, it is. I do think that there's lots of work that needs to be. Lots of things that need to be worked out. The officiating is frankly a complete disaster. It was last year and even more so this year. As Andre Blake said when I chatted with him after the game last night, he said at least it's consistent. And that's about I know that's the most anybody can say without getting fined. But just this last night, the Ty Baribo yellow card for the first yellow card for essentially nothing, and then a scrum in the box where he kind of caught him in the neck a little bit, which first the ref pulled a straight red for that, is not the case on any planet. So you review that, but no ref is ever going to go from red card to nothing. So the red was downgraded to a yellow for for a hit like that, which they showed on the did show replay. I did get a brief clip of it. Just this is this effing guy. He was also
guy.
I don't have
guy.
Yeah. I don't have unfortunately don't have the game sheet from that match, but I believe he did one of the legs of the against Saprissa in CONCACAF Champions Cup, which was also a disaster. So this guy needs to not go near Super Bowl.
There's been a lot of problems. There's been a lot of problems when it came to the entire issues, when it came to just the officiating, even when they had the replacements earlier. I mean, it reminds me a lot of what happened. Remember when the NFL had their strike and they brought in the Division II referees for a while until that brutal interception in the end zone? It's the same kind of thing where they had the issue in the beginning of the season. And then, you bring in the regular guys, they resolve the issues, they get everything back. But the issues themselves still have not changed. I mean, we've
also
seen
in this case, I don't think the regular officials were that much better than the replacements.
At what point do you think the league actually does something about it? Or are they even going to?
Never. They don't care. Garber doesn't care as long as the expansion fees are rolling in, and
Yeah. I mean, listen, people have hated officials since basically officials became a job. Joe Garagiola.
Of course. And it's the toughest job on the planet.
Yeah, it totally
is. Something as egregious as that Ty Baribo situation last night, they're going to appeal it, but as Jim said in the press conference, the chance unless it was a case of usually these appeals are never overturned unless it's a case of mistaken identity or something blatantly egregious, which frankly I think first yellow card I think could have been, but everybody's preparing like he's not going to be there for the semis against Columbus. So now going forward, what does the lineup look like? Uwa and Adeniran haven't really played together too much this season. Usually one is coming in for the other. So I don't believe they've really had much time together yet. But I think it could, but throw it out there and see if it works.
I mean, you're gonna have probably. Gozdog's gonna be in there. Obviously, Quinn Sullivan. You're gonna have basically, I think, the same basic lineup you're gonna have. I just don't see a lot of change in there because the system has gotten you this far. Don't tinker with it too much.
One change that you need to make is that Jose Martinez is pending sale to Corinthians down in Brazil, and good on him. Corinthians isn't just a club in Brazil; they're one of the biggest clubs in all of South America. So for a scrappy kid from Venezuela who came to Philadelphia and became the spirit of Philadelphia. Picture Wayne Simmons as a soccer player, and that's Jose Martinez.
Hey, Wayne Simmons was a devil briefly too.
So. Yes, he was. But always remember.
The funny thing about the Corinthian team is that they also have the ability to find talent in odd places. I mean, you look at somebody like, say, Tyler Magno for the NYCFC. Since you mentioned Corinthians, since he's gone down there, he has absolutely excelled back at his home turf. I think Martinez could really fit in really well, although the conversations between the two of those guys should be very interesting.
Yeah, I'm sure that they'll, once they get down there, but I'm sure it'll be an interest to be a fly on the wall for that initial conversation, but I'm sure they'll figure it out. Teammates.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, you're the same laundry, so basically you can put a lot aside. But as far as Martinez goes, I mean, you have a whole squad here. This was the lineup that they had last night. So Blake, Harriel, Glesnes, Elliott, and Wagner in the back. Flock, Sullivan, and Glinton, then Gozdog, Baribo, and Ura up front. I don't see much change from that going into the match coming up on Tuesday or Wednesday, rather.
you're now going to have to make at least 2 changes.
Yeah, but I think generally speaking, it's all going to be more or less the same.
So now that even with, you got to realize for the Union had not only their starting goalie, but a good number of injuries over the course of several months in the abyss. 1-9-5 without Andre Blake. That's
Jeez, that's what the record was without him.
Coming out of it, I did see that on I believe it was during the FC Cincinnati game. They that was a factoid they showed on the screen. They were 1-9-5 without. I don't know if that's just MLS or all comps, but it makes a huge difference to a team. And Flock slid in pretty well in the back of the diamonds last night, filling in for Jose. He can kind of shift in different spots. Also, Quinn Sullivan. Now that I see Quinn Sullivan as a better lineup change for this game against Columbus, to have him coming off the bench like he did against Cincinnati, where he's the extra burst, fresh legs off the bench, especially now that you don't have a Dinneron or Uwa, depending on the night, coming off the bench as a starting level striker.
Mm-hmm.
So putting Quinn in on the wings, and whether they go with Bedoya to start, and then bring him in for Quinn. I think that could work. And the Union are just a completely different team than they were a few months ago.
That's the funny thing about the league. Sometimes you just turn on a dime. Sports in general. But my question to you in this case here is, now obviously they're going to be facing a very, very strong Columbus team on the road. Presuming for a sec, I mean, real talk, I don't see Columbus losing this game. I don't. I think they played it a little too close yesterday. I think Cucho, Wilfred Nancy, they're going to make sure that next game does not go into overtime of any sort, into shootouts, or shootouts. I don't see it happening. But my question to you is, if the Union actually get eliminated, what does this do for the rest of the season for them?
I think that they can build off the momentum for this. And also, they're still, even if they don't win the trophy, they're still one win away from a spot in CONCACAF Champions Cup, which is a prestigious tournament that next year would be the third consecutive year that the Union would be in that tournament, and I believe the fourth time in 5 years. For any club to have that kind of consistent levels of success on a worldwide scale is impressive, and also goes beyond just MLS and the United States. And now with Kevin Sullivan, already a worldwide name, since everybody likes to bash on Union ownership, and rightfully so, because they've been a Moneyball operation so far. But the more successful they are in these tournaments, the more appearances in things like CONCACAF Champions Cup, that's more money for the team. Whether they spend it on soccer fields or maybe paving the parking lot that they're charging $30 for. But this is good for the team. It's a 9-game sprint in league play after this, regardless of what happens. There's 2 extra games now. You have the one against Columbus, and then either the championship or the third place game. Both would be in Subaru Park on Sunday, the 25th.
Looks like it's a really strong shot at it. Now, here's my question to you, and I've often talked about this. You have leagues, you have tournaments like this that go such a long period of time. will this actually play a factor come October? Because right now, if you look at that Union team, they are a point out of the playoffs of a playoff spot, granted, but they are also just 2 points ahead. They're just 2 points ahead of 14th place Chicago. So will the extra play that they've had and the shootouts and all the drama and the fatigue, will that become a factor for this team late in the season in such a tight race for a playoff spot? I got to say yes. I think it's possible.
I think yes, and it has. We saw it last year, but also this team is now, over the last few weeks, this is the healthiest that this team has ever been.
Mm-hmm.
The 11 and the available 20 for FC Cincinnati, and the round of 32 before were Jim said the strongest selection of players that he's had available all season. It's like the band is finally back together. So while yes, the fatigue could be a factor, also some of these players like Andre Blake have fewer miles on them because they missed a good amount of time earlier in the year, and now they're getting healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So now they can go on a run.
So so let's talk actually a little bit
about away from a trophy. That's the biggest thing to say. Just 2 wins away from a trophy.
But to do that, they're going to have to get through. They're going to have to get through 3 teams statistically that are far better than themselves in this case, including reigning MLS Cup champion Columbus. Now, Columbus pulled out a kind of a skin of the teeth win yesterday. Some part affected by a blade of grass, but an upstart NYCFC team, the youngest team in the league, took them to a shootout last night on home turf. I don't see a Columbus team making a mistake like that again. And real talk, I can see Cucho putting up 2 or 3 on Andre. I really do.
It's possible. I mean, it could go either way with that. It is hard to. Lower.com field is a very hard place to play, but the Union have not been afraid of that.
Mm-hmm.
They've yet to play this season. They're now playing at least 3 times, including
twice in a week.
They're playing twice in a week now.
They're literally playing the team twice in a single week.
New England, they played 3 times in a row, including the decision day in the playoffs last year.
That's what makes this so weird.
3-game playoff format is so stupid.
And then of course
the two-leg aggregate like everybody else in the world.
Then of course you have the finals on the 25th. How is that going to play out with the regular season? Because the teams are playing on the 24th. That could be a problem. Something might have to.
Anybody who's playing in the Final Four of Leagues Cup, their games have been rescheduled. It's
going to have to be.
Yeah, like that's it happened last year. It's happened this year. It's already been announced that because the Union and Columbus were scheduled to play. It was scheduled to play on the road they were playing at home on the 24th. So that game has now been pushed back to the 28th.
It makes sense too. You got to do something like that. Let's give the team some rest,
and just by coincidence they happen to be playing each other. They did the same thing last year. They had a game with FC Dallas that was pushed back to later in September. So that's the thing. It's only the final 4 teams affected. As far as needing to reschedule games in that regard.
But on the other side of the equation, you got the LAFC and LA. I think a lot of fans, general fans, would love to see a rematch between Columbus and LAFC. This is the finals last year. Could be a finals. The drama of that, the rematch of that, I think could be spectacular. And
Columbus or Philly would be a rematch of the MLS Cup finals for the last 2 years.
Valid. Yeah, actually, that's a good point. Actually, either way, the sad thing is even though Colorado actually basically is in the Final Four at this point, they are 4th place in the West. They don't draw. I don't know if you've seen their attendance numbers this year, but they're averaging like 9,000 fans a game. It is brutal that they're drawing absolutely no one over there.
They've not been very successful for the past few years. I believe this is their first good season in a while, and also ownership has been very toxic out there from it's part of the greater cranky sports empire along with all the other
They're owned by the They're owned by the Waltons also, right?
No, the Crankies who own the
Okay.
Rams, the Nuggets, the
Okay.
Avalanche.
Yeah, I looked at the numbers right now. They're worst in the league. They're at 14,007. So that's the total they're pulling in every game, which, like I said, is league worst right now. Next, by the way, just
Worse
comparison.
than San Jose?
Yeah, San Jose is pulling in 18,002. That's an average, by the way, over 13 matches. Colorado right now is averaging over 12 matches. There we go. Let's see. Pull this up. Yeah, Colorado, by the way, they're full almost 3,000 short of next lowest Houston Dynamo. If you can see it at the bottom right. Yeah, see
that's it. That's because the Union are that low because of stadiums, because of it's one of the smallest stadiums in the league. San Jose, if there was a way to flip this to like percentage of capacity numbers, I'm sure
that's a different conversation. Yeah, I mean, part of the reason, frankly, part of the reason why NYCFC is averaging 23,000 is they play in Yankee Stadium or Citi Field that can house almost 50. You know, it's the same issue that Marinos have over in Japan. They play in Nissan Stadium, the single biggest stadium in Japan. It looks empty as hell, but they draw because they have so much capacity to draw.
Look at the Sounders and Atlanta.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, look, I mean, here's the numbers at the top: Atlanta, Charlotte, Seattle, and then Nashville.
Atlanta, Charlotte, the top three all play in regularly fill or NFL stadiums.
You know, but I mean Seattle. Here's the thing: Seattle is a fantastic sports town. If any team deserves a basketball team, it's them again. But
Seattle also has an embedded soccer culture that goes back decades.
Oh yeah, yeah. You know, I mean, I love the fact that Charlotte's averaging 34,000 and pretty much has been second in the league since their inception. They didn't have to build to that; they walked into that. But it just goes to show what the growth is. I don't have the growth numbers in front of me, but the growth numbers of the league in general and the attendance numbers have been very, very impressive year in and year out.
They set a record, I believe, the last 2 consecutive years for highest highest per game attendance in league history. Around 23,000, I believe.
I'm gonna have to look at the numbers, but the home opener last year for Atlanta was higher than the home opener of all but 7 NFL Week 1 games. That's insane. You know, I mean, 48,000. I mean, 48,000 isn't stellar when it comes to a lot of NFL teams, but their Week 1 home opener outclassed much of the NFL. And I'm very curious to see what their Week 1 this year does against Week 1 of the NFL when that starts in a few weeks.
Atlanta is another city that has embraced that. While Atlanta and Seattle are completely different case studies, but both are fascinating in their own right. Mm-hmm. The Sounders have been around in some form. Going back to I believe the 60s or 70s.
Oh, it's 60s. Yeah, I think it's the 60s in this case. Yeah.
Yeah, like I believe they played in the NASL. They've played in various leagues in various incarnations. You know, for long before they were in MLS. Same with the Timbers. You know, but Atlanta was just created out of nowhere in 2017, and Arthur Blank built. They built Mercedes-Benz Stadium to host both, to be able to host and have the proper pitch size to host both NFL and soccer. You know, while the soccer on artificial turf is still an issue. I did see a video recently talking about MLS stadiums where the narrator referred to the roof of Mercedes-Benz Stadium as a giant metal sphincter, and I can never unsee that. Good thing the roof is almost never. When is the roof ever actually open in that place, or any of these places with retractable roofs? They're closed 99% of the time. What's the point?
It's there in case you need it during. Well, see, the benefit is if there's a thunderstorm of any sort, or possibly even a hurricane. You know, we had thunder here today. I mean, you know full well thunder can just delay a game for up to 3 hours at a tilt.
Yeah, but it could be 85 degrees and sunny outside, but they'd still rather close the roof and have the air conditioning on.
To each their own. But so, in your honest prediction, do you see LAFC? I'm sorry. Do you see Philadelphia beating Columbus?
I think it's possible. No, after a lot of people thought there was no chance that they would be able to beat Cincinnati on the road. They'd never won in TQL Stadium before the round of 16 game. And they've done, and the Union have traditionally done okay in Lower.com Field. And despite all of the ups and downs of the season, they're still over 500. They're still 500 in all competitions, even with all of the bad play for big chunks of the year. They were the last undefeated team on the road in MLS. So
the stats that I have do favor
the
Columbus.
Union. Yeah, so for the Union absolutely are capable of it. On paper, yes, Columbus should be outclassing them, but this is not the same Union team that when Oliver Semler was getting chipped from 50 yards out, a few times a week. And it's not the team that's gassed because the only players available on the bench are literal children.
Well, keep in mind also Columbus set a record by giving up the fastest goal in Leagues Cup history last night. The numbers basically it was flipped down to 14. I've heard rumors as fast as 12 seconds in. That Alonso Martinez goal was the fastest in Leagues Cup history. And I guarantee Wilfred Nancy had them looking at that footage today. Make sure that shit don't happen again.
Yeah.
That was honestly, it was a really good look for NYCFC. It was the only goal they scored the entire game. But the fact that it took them.
It was a fantastic goal.
Oh, yeah. It was actually the fastest goal in NYCFC history also, but also fastest in Leagues Cup history. And an embarrassing black mark for Columbus to do that on their home turf because that deflated that crowd big time.
And that's the template.
Yeah.
You're right that Wilfred Nancy probably will not let that happen, but it shows what happens if it does. And the Union are absolutely capable of doing that. They have done that, in recent games.
Yeah.
And Ua is capable of making that quick strike.
So we'll see what happens on that. I personally, like I said, I think Columbus will take a 3-1 as my predictions on that. You, by all means, follow whatever you feel on that. I'm curious. Do you have a prediction or no?
I would say 2-2. Columbus wins the shootout.
That was darn close to what I thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to say 2-2. Philly wins in a shootout. 2-2 is in my head too. So
yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right. So we're not far off on that, but we'll find out what happens there. I think personally, LAFC.
My head says Columbus. My heart says Philly.
Yeah, I kind of had the same vibe too with NYCFC. It's like, okay, it's a Cinderella season. They beat Tigres. Nobody, including us, nobody thought that basically NYCFC was going to beat Tigres, especially when they fell behind 1-0. We were sitting there in that stadium. And credit, by the way, this game. This is the problem with NYCFC. They had to play at Red Bull Arena. Now, I talked to at least 2 of the players for NYCFC. Correction, 3, actually, going to think of it because Matt Freese is the 3rd. But all 3 of them showed their professional disdain, is the phraseology I'm going to use in this case, to have to play in an opponent's stadium for a game of their own. Justin Hack rolled his eyes. Matt Freese was like, what's the most professional way I can say this? I believe was the exact quote. And then Micha Ilinic, day before the match was like, yeah, we don't want to play there. 19-year-old kid, he's just straight up, I don't want to be there. And to their credit,
they're also sick of you guys asking them about it every single time they play in Red Bull Arena. They don't. This is what happens when you don't have a stadium. This stadium is getting built. Get over it. Jesus, let that storyline go a little bit.
But see, here's the nice part about it for me. I don't have to pay tolls. It's like 25, 30 minutes straight down 21, straight through Newark, and then boom, I'm there. The game on Saturday is at Citi Field. I got to go through 2 tolls or sit through a crap ton of time at the 59th Street Bridge. I don't want to do that. Yankee Stadium's not so bad. I got to pay 1. But Red Bull Arena is nice because it's a straight shot for me right down one highway. I love that part of it, even if basically the fans don't like it because they got a bridge and tunnel. But that didn't stop them from coming out that night. I was really I was expecting 90% of that fan base to be Tigres fans, and it was probably only 65%. I was actually very surprised by it.
So the crowd, you'd say, was 65% Tigres, 35% NYC?
I think so, yeah, which is far better than I and a lot of people like Radigan and the rest thought it was going to be.
That's not bad.
Yeah, for
I'll be
Tuesday night
honest.
Virgin Tunnel, yeah. You know, I mean, Qatar, I can't actually say what it was.
Virgin Tunnel game for a team like Tigres that is one of the bigger teams in Mexico that has fan bases around. Because that's also not every Liga MX team draws draws as well as the other ones. Like America, Cruz Azul, Chivas, Tigres is kind of like the next tier down. These are some, but also think about it. What's the biggest difference between Liga MX and MLS? Time.
Yeah.
Club America and Cruz Azul have been around for over 100 years.
Yep. Tigres has been around for 60, I think,
been around for
57 years now. Yeah. You know, so
and
there's
much the same way that everybody in Florida still moves to Florida and still keeps their stuff from, still keeps their team allegiances from, wherever they came from.
The transplant loyalty.
Exactly. That's exactly what Leagues Cup is all about. And you know what? And like, I talked to a family that drove out from Idaho to see Cruz Azul. It's incredible the way that the lengths to which these fans will travel to see their teams, especially if for most folks are not able to go. It's not exactly easy, for regular travel, let alone any kind of political situations or anything like that. To go, it's not exactly easy for people to go fly back to Mexico to see a game. So when they're playing here in the States, they will come out of the woodwork for any of these teams. America, America packed it out pretty well in LA and San Diego. And talking about the quarterfinals last night, did you see the shootouts
yes.
between Colorado and America?
We haven't talked about that, but yeah, full 9-8, dude.
9-8, and the most batshit moment in soccer to me is the 11th round of a PK shootout when it's the goalies shooting at each other.
Yeah, and we're disappointed that we didn't get that.
You've used all the other players on the field, and it's now just the goalies.
Yeah, but also the sheer exhaustion of it. So the NYCFC matchup against New England, that went full 7 rounds. No goalie stopped any shot. They actually missed every single one of them. But one New England player bounced it off the crossbar off the top. And that's the only reason that NYCFC won that 7-6. But that's the one hang up slightly when it comes to the shootout. It's more or less, you're more than likely to get it than not.
This is the same. I understand for a tournament like this, 90 and kicks is absolutely the way to go. I don't like the 30 minutes of extra time adding up in a tournament like this. It
drags. It drags too much.
Yeah, which is why the fact that US Open Cup does the full extra time is just no.
Well, the MLS Cup final, the game that you had against LAFC, that went a full 30 minutes.
See, that is where you and I differ. I think that for a final, that you should play until you drop. I'm originally I'm a hockey fan, but I think play until you golden goal, play until you drop. Have more breaks every 30 minutes. Have breaks every 30 minutes. And allow more.
I think sudden death would actually allow it, because that's the one problem I think with these extra times anyway, is that you can score a goal 3 minutes in and still have to finish it. I think sudden death adds a lot of drama to it.
I agree,
and that's where shootout does have its own degree of drama.
Yeah, and the shootout does have its place. I just the deciding of a league championship through a shootout just doesn't.
You're still
really
salty about that loss, aren't you, sir?
But I thought, in fairness, I thought that even before the
Mm-hmm.
Gareth friggin' Bale, I thought that even before that. I thought that even since watching high school championships, depending on the state, whether they do that. Some states, I believe New Jersey, for a while, they just did. You play extra time, and then it was co-champs. You both can get a trophy. Which for high school, yes, that's appropriate.
Now, I have heard rumors that MLS is looking to implement shootouts to maybe start next season. Same basic format the Leagues Cup has, where you get 2 points for a win and 1 point for a loss. This is not far off necessarily from what. This isn't far off from what the NHL does, although the NHL doesn't allow.
Stop trying to Americanize soccer.
Well, that's what exactly they're doing. They're Americanizing soccer
everywhere else in the world. That's been the biggest issue with MLS, and the fact that Garber decides to change the playoff formats more often than he changes his underwear. Pick something and stick with it. Stop tweaking it.
By the way, maybe you should talk to Major League Baseball about that phrase right there too. About the decisions that are made possibly to require pitchers to go 6 innings unless they give up X number of pitches or X number of runs.
This is a soccer show, so let's stick with that. We'll save.
So I can't plug my conversation with Woodry yesterday. Okay, fine.
No, plug away. I'm just saying.
If you look at our Stream Punk Sports side, you'll see the content going up in the next couple of days. But I had a good conversation yesterday with 12-year MLB catcher and former World Series champ Chris Widger, who had some very, very honest feelings about the possible rule changes that are going on, including some fascinating analytics stories that happened that are Buck Showalter level, which I found absolutely hilarious. I had no idea they actually stuck hockey pucks at the players' backs. But anyway, yeah, check that out over there. Anyway, thank you for letting me do that. But as far as, like I said, the finals for the Leagues Cup, I think a Columbus LAFC final rematch, I think, is what's going to be in the cards here. And I think it's what's going to make the fans really happy. And you mentioned Don Garber. I think it's going to make him happy, too.
Yeah.
I think
I'm excited. So that's why my head says, my heart says the Union can pull it off. My head says probably shootout. Another timeline says, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the Union got screwed somehow, in order to ensure that final happens. Maybe not. I don't know. Just the offsides lines that are looked at sometimes are a mystery.
Dude, for the record, I still stand by this. And the offside rule is a hell of a lot easier than in NHL than it is in soccer. So, anyway,
yeah, but let's see. So let's go out west a little bit with Colorado winning that insane shootout. Colorado and LAFC. Does Colorado have a chance? I think not. I think
credit to Colorado for getting where they did, but. No, I think this is going to be an LAFC team that is extremely hungry again to get back to it because they lost last year, and that's going to piss them off hardcore.
LAFC will win LAFC wants to win every trophy that is put in front of them,
and for whatever it's worth, at the same time they didn't completely, but they sort of did cruise against Seattle. So they might be a little more rested because they didn't have to go through the shootout and the drama and all the stress that Columbus had to.
Yeah.
Shootout may not necessarily.
They did their shootout in the first half.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying it was a 3-0 win versus like a shootout. Shootouts physically may not be that draining, but emotionally and psychologically, that you burn a lot of calories just in the anxiety you're going through watching those sort of things. But as far as Colorado, I got a soft spot for underdog teams. But I think this is LAFC's team to win. This is LAFC's time, and I think honestly, LAFC is going to win the Leagues Cup altogether.
I don't want that, but I think you're right.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I feel it makes me happy to actually see what they were able to do. But crap,
and they're still alive in U.S. They're playing in the U.S. Open Cup semis as well right after this. Presumably, they'll just roll out the B squad for that.
By the way, could you have done me a favor? When we were talking about Philadelphia that entire time, I meant to put the Philadelphia picture up, but instead I put the LAFC picture up. So if you saw that, I was really hoping you'd tell me.
I figured you were going through a slideshow or something, and I wasn't.
No, my dumbass missed it. No, my dumbass literally was looking at it.
So put OWA back on the screen for the rest of the show.
There we go. Okay,
thank you.
We'll leave that. We'll leave that picture up for LAFC. There we go. We got this.
We'll make it even now.
Actually, you know what? We'll put this. But also at the same time, what's really nice about this is you get both semifinal games back to back, which is a really nice ratings draw. You get and granted, it's middle of the week, so you're gonna have a work week to deal with. But as soon as the Philadelphia game is over, the LA game starts, and I think that's a really nice touch for this. That especially if you're anywhere, I'd say Central Time Zone and West, you could conceivably watch both games all the way through.
The diehard soccer nuts will, but also the conversations of ratings and all that doesn't apply to anything that's behind a streaming paywall necessarily.
Well, it actually, believe it or not, there are sources.
There are no casual viewers when it's behind a paywall. Period.
Is any of these games airing on FS1 though?
I think some early round games did. The Union Cruz Azul game, I believe, was simulcast on it, but the semis, I believe, are not.
Okay.
Because that is the big part of Apple's empire. Is the exclusivity of the League's Cup final.
I'm just curious on that because actually, if I could actually watch, let's see. Yeah, see, I'm not seeing it that way. All right, never mind. I'll give it up. I'm not gonna waste my time on it. But I'd be curious to see if it's actually.
I can tell you from remembering what it was last year. The third place match was at 6:00, and the final was at, I believe, 8:30 or 9. I don't remember. I
do remember that.
Started right away at 8. It did at 8:30. I think it started at 8:30.
And again, that's a smart way of doing it.
Yeah.
Because that way you get both matches at the same time. You can get people hooked into one right into the other on that.
Yeah.
I love it. So, but I think LAFC takes that one. I'm going to say 3-0 on that one, personally.
3-0 LAFC over Colorado. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe 2-0. I should probably say 2-0. I'm going to stick with 3. So 3-0 on one side, 3-1 on the other.
Yeah. And then I would say a Union blowout in the third place game, 4-1.
You could live with that.
It's CONCACAF spot.
Yeah.
Just unfortunately, because America, what I was really hoping for was a repeat of last year, where it would be America and Philly in a game where America, for winning both sides of the Liga MX season last year, they've already clinched a CONCACAF spot, so they don't need that. So if they're in a third place game, yes, their fans will come out, but would have come out, but it would have been a way different vibe. Just like when Philly played Monterrey in the third place game last year, when Monterrey had already had a slot. But Colorado will be just as hungry as Philly. But with the way Philly has been playing, I don't see that. I don't see that being close. But
and you said the third place game would be the game would be at the Sub.
Yes. But
okay.
the final, any game on Sunday will be at Subaru Park, whether it's a championship or third place.
All right.
Because they have because Columbus is the only one, is the only team left with home field advantage over the Union. So whoever wins the East side of this will have home field advantage in the final.
And you're going to go, right?
Of course.
I was going to say, you're like, yes, I'm going to go. You're literally nodding side by side. Love it. So,
of course I'll be there. We're going to, and
hi Kyle, what are you doing that night?
All right, so you got your plug. I'm going to do mine. So,
wait. Hang on. Let's do this right.
All right.
There, go.
There we go. All right. My plug for Wednesday for the Philadelphia Columbus Leagues Cup semifinal. We will be doing a game stream live reaction. So while the game is going on, for those that don't have Apple TV, you can watch us talking about the game. Comment, chat with us. We'll do a live reaction stream. We did that for MLS Cup final last year. But trying to get a few more Union folks in the fold. I've been talking to a few. Not sure who's going to be on yet with me, but come check out my coverage. I'll be doing the coverage during the game because I believe a few other channels. I'm not sure which ones yet, so I don't know who to plug. Usually it's some combination of AAT Sports, the Free Kick podcast, Edge of Philly, all the Todd Lewis, Skylar Hoffman, all those guys. They're awesome. But we'll be so we'll have some guests for Wednesday. Don't know who yet, but just come join us while we watch the Leagues Cup semi. And we got speaking of plug, the Gobbler himself checking in.
If I actually have nothing planned that day, because the film industry is straight ass, I probably won't have anything going on that day. I would be able to do it as well, and whatever insight I've got from being dealing with working alongside Columbus, Wilfred Nancy, and obviously the bit that I've had with Philly, although that's more than your department. If I can basically be available for it, I will try to be, unless you're like, no, I don't want you here. So
no, you can hop on.
But we'll figure that part out. But yeah, I figure that probably can't hurt any, and I'll see what I can make happen that night also. See if I can bring in a body or two throughout. Okay, so there's only one more thing that I've got, unless you've got something else.
Think that's pretty much it for me. I know there was other events. Oh, just one last goodbye for Jose Martinez. He's heading off the Corinthians. He's the second departure this year. Also, this is more importantly for the Union, between the sale of Julian Carranza being sold off to Feyenoord, and now Jose moving on to Corinthians. Great opportunities for the both of them. This is the start of the rebuild.
Yep.
For the Union. Hopefully, it's a rebuild on the fly, but I think it's better to happen. You're now starting to see some breadcrumbs of it. But
I would use the word reload before I use the word rebuild.
Absolutely. They already have Jose's replacement, Donley Saint-Jacques, a Haitian national who played in Ligue 1 in France for the past few years.
Mm-hmm.
But he's still getting acclimated. I've heard some great things about him, so I'm looking forward to the talent. So say what you will about Leagues Cup and the 9-game sprint after that, there is now some entertaining Union soccer to see.
Here's what I think
of absolute trash.
A lot of the conversations I've had with NYCFC head coach Nick Cushing has centered around this, because NYCFC is the youngest team in the league, and the playoff training that has come from this tournament has trained a lot of the younger guys who've never really dealt with, playoff experience. They have lived it the last few weeks. Same with Philadelphia. You got some of these guys that are getting a prelude to what October and November is going to be in MLS, with the playoff format, because you're living it during Leagues Cup. It is a great
event, baby.
Dude, it is a chance to learn and acclimate yourself to a playoff mentality where every minute counts more than ever. I think it's a great way for doing this. So it's just a little chaotic on our schedule, but all right. So I got one more thing I want to talk about, if you don't mind. So it's rumored heavily that Mauricio Pochettino is going to be the new head coach of the U.S. men's national team. Fine. He's known for U20. He's well established in bringing up younger players and training them, things like this. But there's a weird quirk with this particular coaching hire that it seems like the team is actually okay with, where he's going to be doing most of his coaching away from the team. He's going to be operating largely out of Europe and working through live stream for the most part. He'll do, some in-person stuff, but he's not really, apparently rumors have it, he is not actually making a move over here to coach the U.S. team. And apparently the U.S. men's national team and the squad and all the bosses are kind of okay with that. Article I've got here from MLS Multiplex is that, I'm reading it straight up here. But unlike what you expect from a national team coach, he might continue living in Europe. Yeah, you read that right. The guy potentially leading the U.S. on home soil in the 2026 World Cup might be doing it from across the ocean. Apparently part of it has to do with his decision to try and avoid some of the news media outlets, which, okay, I can kind of get that a little bit, but that's not really an option. But the problem
if you can't handle the news media, you shouldn't be coaching that team.
The problem that I got with this
didn't he just coach Chelsea, and you think you can't handle America media?
You can't handle it remotely. The problem is you can't see the nuances that tightly, from a tablet. Okay, you'll get footage, you can watch it after the fact, things like this. There was something I had shot years ago. It was one of those reenactment, like informative murder points, and the director was really out sick, really, really sick. So they shot the entire episode with her, the tablet, like literally on the camera like this, and that's how she actually directed all the way through. And it was so improper because there was no clarity on this, because all you saw was whatever was on the screen there, and it was next to impossible. That was one TV show in one set, not an entire squad of a bunch of players there, many of whom have never played before and are suddenly thrown together in an environment. And then you're going to have your head coach be like, "Good luck, guys. Hope you guys do well." I'm hoping this isn't true, but this might be the most U.S. MNT thing the U.S. MNT has ever done.
The U.S. Soccer Federation is their own worst enemy and has been for years. The Bearhalter disaster was bad enough, but now this,
I'm curious. Waiting to find out about that.
2026 is the most important moment in the history of soccer in this country. And yet USSF continues to put their foot in their mouth and cash in their pockets, because that's all they really give a crap about.
He is a good choice, but he is a good choice, I think. Unexpected choice, not my first choice, but I think he is a good choice to make this work. But boy, I hope this isn't the final answer on this, because that is such a bold.
And I think that I still think, I don't think that a foreign, to quote Andre Blake when I asked him about Steve Bruce. Somebody who's never coached outside of England, I don't believe, outside of Northern Europe, let's say, is now going to be the Jamaican national team coach. Which sounds weird, but their previous coach was from Iceland. So I couldn't think of a good way to ask Andre about why Jamaica hires the whitest people they could find. But just football is universal was his diplomatic answer. And that I understand that line of thinking when it comes to the U.S. men's national team, that you want a successful manager from wherever you could find them. But there's also a very successful manager in Steve Cerundolo, who would be a perfect fit and would be able to jump right in there after the MLS season is over. That seemed like the biggest no-brainer hire that the U.S. Soccer Federation could have made, and it's been a few days, and they've already managed to blow this.
Well,
that is peak U.S. Soccer Federation.
You look at the three of the four head coaches that are actually in League's Cup semifinals right now. All three of those four we have talked about as potential replacements for Berhalter. Wilfred Nancy, Tarungelo, and Jim Curtin. Chris Armas isn't a bad choice either for Colorado, but I don't think he's ready yet. No. But three of those four right there in the League's Cup semifinals are coaches that all of us were like, yeah, I can live with that. It's okay.
Selfishly, I wanted Steve Cerundolo out of LA, and I think the next national team that Wilfred Nancy coaches might be the French team.
Well, that would make sense. Basically, if Mauricio head over here, you might see him basically go back to France.
I think that Wilfred Nancy's next job is in France. Not
I don't know what else he can do.
Not the U.S. national team, not anywhere else in MLS. I think he's going back to Europe.
And you know what? Good for him if he does. He deserves it. He is one of my favorite head coaches. He absolutely is. You know, one of the nicest, most professional guys that I have ever been on a press conference with. You know, a guy from Seattle, Steve Welcher, I forget his name, but he's actually a really good one too. And Jim Curtin, like I said, I always like the fact that Curtin always thanks his PR person before he starts every press conference. Simple as it is, I always appreciate the fact he says thanks Nico or thanks Era.
Yeah, and he says thanks to the fans. Who showed up.
You know, I like
the fans when they lose.
Yeah, you know, but which is always funny because when you see those press conferences too, and the fans are like, "Yeah, we really like you. Please get better so we don't feel bad about having you fired." Meanwhile, NYCFC is like, "Cushion, get out. You lost to Columbus yesterday. Get out."
We're running over an hour. So we're over an hour, so we should wrap this up.
I was just thinking the same thing.
Those are my final. So those are my final thoughts.
Cool.
League Cup semis. The Wednesday, the 21st. I believe I haven't seen times yet. I believe it's a 7:30 start.
7:30 and 10 p.m. on the eastern side, anyway.
Yeah. So check it out with us right here on Stream Punk Soccer for Union versus Columbus, 7:30 on Wednesday.
Yes. You know, and lower.com field, and then LAFC will be taking on Colorado, although that's well past my bedtime, so I probably won't be doing it. But all right, so thanks very much. Anything else, or are we good?
I'm good. Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. Thanks as always. Appreciate it. Thanks, Twitter. I saw your numbers. Appreciate that. I feel flattered there. Anyway, take care, and until next time, stay awesome.